Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're having a good day. Just got back to the studio, went home to do some work and hang out with my cats. So I'm back here. Gonna do this real quick because once again I fell asleep on the couch for too long. So I have to get myself set up for the class that's starting at 6, but I figured I'd get on here real quick and come and do part 2 of my talk about hormones that affect your weight. So a lot of people struggle with their weight, and sometimes it can be due to hormonal levels being just way out of balance. Hey Teresa, how's it going? And then yesterday I talked about insulin, estrogen, and cortisol, which are all ones that I think we're pretty familiar with. We hear about them a lot. These next ones I'm going to talk about, you may have heard of them before. Don't hear about them as much, but they're very interesting. So I will tell you about these 3 right now. So the first one is leptin, and leptin is produced by your fat cells, and it's a hormone that tells you when you are full. So it tells your brain that you've got enough fat stored, you don't need to store anymore, so it's time to stop eating, and then your brain doesn't push you to eat some more. So that's what the job of leptin is. Now, interestingly, overweight and obese people actually have a lot of leptin circling in their bloodstream, up to 4 times as much as someone who doesn't have a weight issue. So you would think that because these levels are so high, they would be signaled to stop eating and they would lose weight, but unfortunately what's happened is the cells have become leptin resistant, so they're not responding to the leptin anymore. So the brain doesn't get the signal that the body no longer needs to store more fat, so it drives the person to eat more. So that's one of the reasons why people who are overweight and obese, they can't seem to control their appetite. So the leptin is not signaling the brain properly to tell it that it's time to stop eating. And one potential cause of leptin resistance is chronically elevated levels of insulin, which I talked about yesterday. High levels of insulin, being resistant to insulin, that also leads to weight gain. So these hormones all kind of work together. Hey Becky, how's it going? Hi Nolan. So the other side of it is when you lose weight, leptin levels actually drop off. So that means that your brain isn't getting the signal that you've eaten enough, and that's why it can be kind of hard to keep weight off. So it's not impossible, but it can be difficult. And I know for myself in the past when I've lost some weight, I find that my appetite seems like it's increased. And because I've studied a bit about nutrition and hormones and that kind of thing, I kind of realize what's going on, so I can, logically I know what's happening, so I know it's not a need to really eat, it's just the leptin levels are a little lower, and so I'm feeling that urge to eat more, but I'm able to resist that because I realize what's happening. So that's another reason why I tell you guys about these things, because I figure the more knowledge you have, the easier it is to deal with things. Because when you don't know what's going on, you just kind of react. When you know what's going on, you don't always react without thinking about it a little bit more. So I hope that this kind of stuff kind of helps you out. So what to do about leptin? So if you want to keep it in check, avoid inflammatory foods and eat more anti-inflammatory foods. So inflammatory foods are pretty much anything that has sugar, anything that's been processed to death, and of course all junk food. So that's going to cause inflammation in the body. That's going to throw your leptin off. So try to avoid that as much as possible. Hey Colleen. And anti-inflammatory foods include things like fatty fish. That's a really good meat to eat. Vegetables and fruits. So, those healthy whole foods. The next one that you can do to help is exercise. So, of course, I'm always telling you guys to exercise. Even just moderate activity can help improve leptin sensitivity. So, it's pretty important. So, getting in some moderate activity every day. So, Nolan, walking versus running. So walking would be that moderate activity. You won't burn as many calories in one session of walking as you would in running, but walking is a lot more gentle on the body. And, you can do things while you're walking to increase your heart rate, doing little intervals and stuff like that. So it's great. I used to run, and I wrecked my knees and ankles and all that stuff. And I miss running because I enjoyed the solitude of it. Just put on my music and go. But my body is not built for running, and my chiropractor totally agreed with that. So walking is a great form of exercise. Biking or taking a spin class, that's even better. Hey, Darcy with an apostrophe, how's it going? So the next one, also to do with leptin, is getting the sleep that you need. So once again, trying to get about 7 to 9 hours sleep a night. I know that can be tough. I know I struggle with that. But when you don't get enough sleep, the leptin levels tend to drop off and your appetite increases. And I don't know about you, but I've experienced that when I haven't gotten enough sleep and I'm feeling really tired, I tend to feel like I'm hungrier. So the next hormone you may or may not have heard of is ghrelin. And when your stomach is empty, it releases ghrelin, which sends a message to your brain that it's time to eat. So ghrelin levels are at their highest just before you're going to eat, so when your stomach is empty, and then at your lowest about an hour after eating. So studies have shown that in overweight and obese people, ghrelin only decreases a small amount after they've eaten. So this means that the brain is still getting signals that you need to keep eating, and it drives the person to keep eating more, even though they've had enough. But because the level of ghrelin hasn't decreased enough, it's sending signals that you should keep eating. So this is what's leading to this overeating. So what can you do about that to help your ghrelin levels? Cut out the sugar. So that's kind of a common theme in all of this, and staying healthy is cutting out sugar. So sugar and high fructose corn syrup can impair ghrelin response after eating. So try to get that out of your diet. As I mentioned yesterday, you need to read labels because they sneak sugar into everything. So including things you wouldn't even think of. So like bread, certain condiments, salad dressings, sauces, all sorts of things that's got sugar in it. So make sure you read those labels. Try to eat things as close to their natural state as possible. Try to stick to whole foods and that kind of thing. The other thing you can do is eat more protein. So be sure to have protein with every meal, which includes your snacks, and especially with breakfast. It reduces the ghrelin levels, so your brain gets a signal that you've eaten enough and you can stop eating now. So really important to get that protein in, figure out how much you should be having, and make sure that you're sticking to that amount and not just eating a ton of carbs. And then the last hormone, neuropeptide Y, or NPY. So this one is produced by the cells in your brain and your nervous system, and it stimulates your appetite, particularly for carbs. So I'm just going to call it NPY because it's easier to say. So NPY levels are at their highest during periods of food deprivation or fasting, which is why you get those super crazy cravings for carbs when you're on a really low calorie diet. NPY is also elevated when you're feeling stress. So NPY as well as cortisol levels, right? So when you're stressed out, those two hormones are working against you to make you more hungry and crave those carbs. So what can you do to keep your NPY levels where they should be? Avoid crash diets, and if you are going to fast, don't do it for too long. I've got friends who do intermittent fasting. A lot of people really get a lot out of that. They love the results they get from that, and it's fine, but don't fast for more than 24 hours. So they did some studies on animals, and they found that fasting more than 24 hours can dramatically increase your NPY levels, so that's going to increase your cravings for carbs. And if you're going on those super low calorie diets, you got to stop. They're just a waste of time. They work fast because you restrict calories that much, of course you're going to lose weight, but in the end they definitely backfire. And then again, eat the appropriate amount of protein. So protein seems to be the common theme here. You got to get that protein. Eating too little protein is shown to increase NPY levels, leading to hunger and increased food intake, particularly with your carbs. So you've got to make sure you're getting that protein, eating it with every meal and snack that you have. And then take care of the good bacteria in your gut. So be sure to include a high quality probiotic in your diet and eat plenty of soluble fiber to keep those good bacteria happy. You can buy probiotics in capsule form. Make sure that you get ones that are high quality, so don't cheap out on them. They might be a little more expensive, but if you're buying the cheap ones, you're not getting anything anyway, so basically you're spending your money on nothing. So get the really high quality ones. Make sure there's an expiration date. If your probiotic doesn't expire, then it's not going to work for you. Probiotics are living things and they expire. You can also try doing what I do, which is drink a high-quality shake such as Shakeology, which has both pre- and probiotics in it, and also really great ingredients and no crappy stuff in it. So that's another way to get your probiotics. So that's it. That was pretty quick. I got to get going. There's going to be part 3 tomorrow, so I'll talk about 3 more hormones. There's glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1, cholecystokinin, or CCK, which will be what I'll be calling it because cholecystokinin is hard to say, and peptide YY. So those are 3 that you don't really hear a whole lot about unless you're studying it, but interesting stuff. So I'll be talking about that tomorrow. So if any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below, or if you want to chat later, you can always message me. I better run and get set up for the class that's going to start in half an hour. So have a great evening, and I'll see you again soon.